Okay, everybody, you're all very, very welcome to this, the second of our farm safety and well-being forums. My name is Alma Jordan, and I'll be acting as MC for this evening's event. I am delighted to welcome and to each of our speakers this evening, and soon I will be handing you over to Caroline Farrell, who will be chairing this evening's event. I also want to thank Turlough Slaney for all his help in engaging with our speakers for this evening and for supporting the event. So I suppose a big reason as to why we have events such as this, why we have events such as Farm Safety Week, which is currently running, is because we are losing so many farmers every year to farming accidents. In the last 10 years, we've lost 210 farmers to an accident. 45% of those are our older farmers, and 10% of those lost were children. So a farm accounts for nearly half of all our workplace accidents, yet it is only accounting for up to 6% of all workplaces. To tie in with this, I'm very keen to very much integrate the area of mental health and mental health awareness around the topic of farm safety, especially since the Agriland MPP research report came out in 2019 that told us that 50% of the 3,000 farmers surveyed were suffering or impacted by feelings of anxiety, further 26% by feelings of depression or severe sadness. So our chair for this evening is Caroline Farrell, Farm Family Committee. And Caroline, I will hand over to you to introduce each of our speakers, and I'm delighted to welcome Evelyn McGinley of Mulroy Vets, who will be covering off livestock, Gary Fisher from Teagasc in Donegal, who will be looking at but will also be looking
Sorry, Alma, you've just gone mute there.
I knocked myself off there. And also, all mics working. Delighted to welcome in Trish Duke, the mindset coach. And you can find out a lot more about Trish on her social media platforms, BU by Trish.
So, I don't know whether it's just Alma or whether it's my signal, but it's very broken up.
Is it? Okay. Is everybody else okay?
We're doing grand this end anyway, Alma.
So I'm going to hand you over now to Caroline Farrell to introduce the first of our speakers. And as I said, I'm running the SBS slideshow, so each of the speakers can let me know when they're ready to move on to the next slide. Evelyn, we'll start with yourself. Caroline, can you hear us?
Are you talking to me?
Is Caroline there?
Okay. Hi, Alma, I don't know whether I'm losing you there, but whether it's my signal or whether it's coming from your end. I hope everybody can hear me all right anyway. I'm delighted that you all made it here this evening and that people have joined in with us, and I'm delighted to welcome Evelyn to give her presentation, and we'll catch up with. Yes, hand over to Evelyn.
Perfect.
Feedback just to let me know if you can hear.
Can you hear me?
I'm saying.
Yeah, we can hear you both. So, Evelyn, you carry on with your presentation now.
Perfect. So I suppose I'm just going to talk a wee bit about farm safety, and maybe more so from a vet's perspective on livestock, rather than machinery or anything like that. Do I go on to the next? Yeah, perfect. Just a little bit, I suppose, about my background. I graduated from UCD in 2019. I've been working nearly 2 years now in Donegal, so it'll be just my experience on farms in Donegal. The good and the bad setups that I've seen. Generally, they've been pretty good. I suppose maybe back 10 or 15 years ago, they mightn't have been as good. And just as a vet, when you go out onto farm, like the farmer presents you, with the animal, but it's up to you whether, you judge it, whether it's safe to work with the animal or not. You are responsible for it. And just, I suppose, issues like we get is with TB tests at calvings, cesarean sections, and just treating sick animals. Another thing I'll be talking about is cows around calving time and how they can change their behaviour. And another aspect, I suppose, maybe farmers don't really think about is zoonotic diseases that can be passed on, you know, from animals to humans. So, and then just an overview of the deaths that are caused, or like livestock can cause 19% of deaths between 2010 and 2019. I suppose that is a big enough percentage considering that, you know, we can control the outcome. And then when we break that down further, just in the next slide. Yeah, a lot of them, you know, are cows, I suppose, after calving. We always think that it's bulls that kill, but cows after calving can be quite dangerous as well. Yeah. So I suppose vets come in contact with farmers annually at TB testing. I suppose by now, like they should, because it's a yearly test, they should have a good setup. It's a place where we can, you know, as vets, even farmers are handling livestock, things can go wrong, gates aren't secured properly, they panic, I suppose they get mad too, tempers flare, and I suppose this is when things can go wrong. So there's no real need to panic, and it's always good to have the setup secure before bringing in the animals. And I'll show you a few photos of good and bad setups down the line. And risks are avoided, you know, if there's good help there, a proper setup and gates are secured before bringing the animals in. So none of these photos are from Donegal, just so we're clear on that. My friend sent them all to me, so just in case I get in trouble. This photo on the left-hand side, like, it's not an ideal setup at all. Like, there's so many hazards there. I suppose a ladder could fall, like there's no gate to let the animals out. Even for the vet testing, you know, they can't move up and down the crush, like. And then this photo on the right-hand side, yes, the head gate and crush is there, and that's a good setup, but I don't know how strong them cable ties would be if, you know, something kicked it or fell over on it or anything like that. So it's really important to, you know, tie the gates properly, or, you know, a good setup. And the one on the left is the way it should look like. The vet has space to move up and down. You know, we can catch an animal in a headlock if needs be. And the farmer's not at risk either. And the one on the right, I suppose it's not really, I suppose, the vet or the farmer's fault. Like, animals can jump and they can get injured, so you should always just be aware of that happening. And this is just another really good setup. Cows are all in the crush. They're separated from their calves. It's never really good to, I suppose, put calves in along with cows because they can get squished, you know, and they're just rough and want to get out of there. So it's always good to separate the cows from the calves. And then I suppose another big issue is around calvings. Like, we would see a lot of cesarean sections in Donegal, and I suppose sometimes, a lot of the time, there's no calving gates there, or you have to go to out farms and there's no real setup there. And like, a lot of the time you get kicks, or, you know, the farmer gets a kick, or, you know, the animal's a wee bit wild and you have to halter them, and it's kind of sometimes a recipe for disaster. But so I suppose, obviously, I know it's hard to have calving gates in every setup, but if you're calving cows, like, you should really have a calving gate. Otherwise, like, anything from, I suppose, a ladder across the bottom, even bars across. Sometimes even people cut a gate, like the top bar of the gate out. Like, anything at all, just to stop kicks and to secure them properly. So if they go down, like, we're obviously cutting into the abdomen, and, you know, intestines, anything can come out, and it's not pretty, like. So I just want to talk through this picture a bit. Like, obviously it is a good setup in that the animal is restrained. Neither the vet nor the farmer are going to get kicked at this stage. But I suppose a lot of farmers are saying to me too, whenever obviously you have to take that gate away because you can't inject lidocaine the way it is. And they're like, oh no, she's quiet, but that's all right until you start putting a needle in a cow, and like you can't blame them for kicking. And like that's where I've got a lot of my kicks from. So I suppose like what we ended up doing in that situation was actually putting a ladder across the bottom of her legs. Sterling actually uses that, so it works pretty well. So that just secured it, and she wasn't able to kick, and you know, it worked well. Like it wasn't a calving gait, but it did do the job. Like the one on the left here as well. Like it's okay. It's not ideal. Like even for like farmers calving cows, like if the cow goes down, there's obviously a rope on that. Like she get her leg caught in it. She's not actually haltered or anything. So, you know, it becomes a messy situation, and it's not really ideal either. I had a farmer once where he was obviously holding the gate. There was no rope there. And the cow went down and he just got flung back and hit his head. Like, so, you know, you think it's fine at the time, but, you know, just have to beware. And then I suppose the one on the right hand side is just an ideal setup. The cow's restrained. There's no way of her kicking. Like if you want to do anything with her, you can. She's not going to get out or anything like that. So I suppose this is just the ideal situation that I'd like to come into farm to see. But even the one on the left, like that works. Like that spars across, that's fine. I have no problems with that either. And then the one on the right, I'm not sure. Maybe this was after the section, but I don't think so. But like sometimes we have to, like you just have to improvise and go with it. But like it is risky because again, if the cow falls over, or like there's not enough help there, or she moves over and back, like intestines can come out, anything come out, and it's just not really ideal, to be honest. And suppose other restraints that you can use on animals, like for the farmer's benefit, is head gates. Some farms you go out onto as well, they don't necessarily have head gates, and like even for the farmer working with the animal themselves, even tagging, even dosing them, like it's so much easier to just restrain them in the head gate. Your no fingers will get jammed or anything like that. Like and it's easier for us too, like doing IV injections or even passing fluids, like rather than just having a gate that closes at the front and you're trying to pass fluids and the cow's moving back and forth and you end up getting jammed or something like that. And then just other restraints that I suppose should be on farm or handy to have, or halters, nose tongs, an anti-kick bar, tie a leg and raise a tail as well. And then just other animals, I suppose, that are restrained, like we have stocks in the practice, so it's ideal for scanning mares and whatnot like that. Like sometimes we'd be asked to scan them maybe in a box or not ideal situations, and you could easily get a kick too. And that's just a photo of our setup in the practice as well. I suppose it saves our backs, like. And then I suppose a big issue around calving is, I suppose, like there's such a big change in behavior in the cows. Like there's a change in their hormones. They're stressed out, and we should never take them for granted. Even the quietest cow like can turn on you, and like it's not worth the risk. So you should always think before going into a pen with a cow and calf. I actually had an elderly farmer put me into, well, he told me to go in to treat the cow and treat the calf, and the cow was in the pen, and he was like, nah, she'll not touch you. Like he's like, he'll keep her back, but that's all well and good until something happens. So we actually ended up taking the calf out, and sure, she was are putting her head over the gate, like moving away at us. So like you just have to, I suppose, assess the situation, and always, it's never worth the risk. So always, I suppose, restrain the cow before calving. So even just leave her for 30 minutes to bond with the calf, let it get up and suck. Obviously, if it's not sucking, then you have to put her back in and, deal with the calf. But should always have her restrained. And when you're tagging her, just because she's not just, I know it's not freshly calved, but like you should always have the cow isolated as well. And if the cow shows aggression, I wouldn't keep her. Like, should breed quiet animals and never take the risk. I suppose near misses as vets on farm with animals, a lot of the ones that I would have, the near misses that I would have been kicks from cows. My other colleagues would have had broken bones or severed tendons, black eyes as well, and one of the vets I know as well was concussed. So it can all happen like in a split second, so really need to think about it. And then just lastly, another aspect that I was saying like farmers wouldn't really think about is zoonotic diseases. So these are any diseases that can be passed on from animal to human. And I suppose most commonly the ones that we would see are Cryptosporidium, ringworm, ORF, Leptospirosis, and Toxo and Enzo. And just it's always important to wash your hands and wear gloves. Cryptosporidium is present, I suppose, a lot around springtime, and calves with scour. So we should always wash our hands and maybe keep children back because they're most vulnerable because I suppose they haven't built up the level, of resistance that we have over the course of each spring, like, and it's shed in the feces of calves as well. And then ORF is another one. Maybe a lot of people don't think that it is zoonotic, but it definitely is, and it's pretty nasty if you get it. So always make sure to wear gloves handling lambs that have ORF, or if you're vaccinated as well against it. Just all because it is a live vaccine, so make sure that you're wearing gloves. And then ringworm. I suppose people think that ringworm is a worm, but it's actually a fungal infection that just presents in the shape of a ring. It's very contagious also, and it can take months for it to go away. I actually had it for about 10 months last year, and it's definitely not something you want to have. And you would see it a lot at, with on calves or drop calves, just ringworm patches, and just always make sure to wear gloves, if you see it at all. And then leptospirosis as well. It's spread through urine and after birth or aborted fetuses. It can cause abortion, infertility, and milk drop in cows, and it can cause flu-like symptoms, headaches, and fevers in humans as well. And then the last two is Toxo and Enzo. I suppose cats are the primary host of this. So you should, if you have any farm cats, I know a lot of farmers don't like cats, but if you have any cats around the farm, make sure they're wormed, because it can cause abortion in sheep, and it also can cause birth defects in pregnant women. So they should always be careful, and it can pass from mother to baby. So it can, the way we can contract, or way we can get it is through just an undercooked eggs from cat feces. So pregnant women should definitely be very careful, with litter trays or anything like that. And then Enzo, this is usually shed in infected sheep at lambing time, and it can cause, I suppose, flu-like symptoms in humans, but it can cause a stillbirth of an unborn child in a pregnant woman as well. And it is a live vaccine. You can get a vaccine for it. So it's just advisable that you know, obviously wear gloves around lambing time, and maybe pregnant ladies should not maybe lamb sheep or vaccinate them either. But just with any zoonotic diseases, like if you're worried that that it can transfer from animal to human, just make sure to wear gloves. And then just, I suppose, the little take-home messages. Just like now's the time, I suppose, to plan ahead for spring. If you don't have a calving gate, or if you don't have a setup for cows that are calving, then do get one set up, either a calving gate or just a temporary thing, that works. And then think before you act, especially when going into cows with calves that are just freshly born. Just never take the risk, because it's never worth it. And if there's any aggression shown at all, make sure to cull them. And then just with zoonotic diseases, just wear gloves and wash hands. So thanks very much for listening. And if you have any questions, you can ask Gary at the end.
Thank you very much for that lovely presentation. And as I say, you've mentioned farm safety equipment a lot in your presentation, and I just remind our listeners that a lot of the co-ops and local merchants are giving a special discount for Farm Safety Week for safety equipment. So maybe now is a good day to go out and try and see what you can organise for the spring and even for the short term. Now, I just want to check in with Trish to make sure I don't know whether Alma would like her to give her presentation now, or just want to check with her to make sure her system is working for us, or we'll let Gary go ahead with his presentation. It's up to you, Alma. I just
want to see if Trish's microphone, or if we had resolved Trish's issue. So if Trish is there, if she could speak up. And by that silence, I think we might still have a problem there. So if we do have a problem with Trish, what I'll do is I can contact Trish, and we can record another session and add it on to the end of this session here, so everybody will have a recording of it. And just to remind everybody again that this event is being recorded. So I'll hand back over to you now, Caroline.
Lovely, thank you. And I just welcome Gary from Teagasc along to give us his presentation, and then we will have a questions and answer session at the end of the presentations, whether it be 2 or 3. Hopefully Trish will get back in action in time for her presentation. But anyway, we hand the floor over to you, Gary, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody, and thanks AFA for inviting me to talk tonight around farm safety. Look, I'm a bit longer in the job than Evelyn, unfortunately. I joined Teagasc back in 1996, and unfortunately during that time I do know of a lot of farm families that have lost loved ones to farm accidents. And we look at numbers, we look at the statistics, but at the end of the day, those people are not a statistic to a family. They're a loved one, they're missed every day. And I think farmers need to take farm safety a little more seriously, and as Evelyn said, look, sit back sometimes and look at what you're actually doing, and is it safe? Okay. And this is a group of farmers I had down probably 2 years ago now, before COVID. We're down in Galway, and look, there's all age groups working in farming, and you can see in this picture here, there's people here in their early 20s, and there's farmers here. Now, you mightn't like to say, but he's over 70, but I'll not pick him out here. But so we're working with all age groups, and unfortunately, we all think we're young at heart, but we do get older, and we're not as supple or as quick as we might have been when we were in our 20s. And look, I've been asked to talk about older farmers, and the county I'm in, there's a lot of part-time farmers. The young farmers are actually off farm, maybe working, and Evelyn would see this a lot in her own practice, where they're going out to farms, and maybe the young person that's maybe running the farm actually isn't there, he's at work, and maybe it's the older generation that's maybe at home. And look, there's practices that they can carry out in farms, and there's practices that they shouldn't at their age be trying to do. They think they can do them, but in all reality, they should maybe take a step back and just maybe leave it for the younger generation to carry out. So maybe we'll just move to the next slide, please, Alma. So look, this is a very startling statistic in agriculture, and as I sort of said earlier, look, it's numbers here, but at the end of the day, there's a loved one lost here. And the real thing around this here is, I'm not going to go through all the statistics here, but agriculture has the highest rate of fatal injury in the economic sector. So if you're working in agriculture, you're 7 times more likely to be killed at work in farming. Now, 7 times. And I know this week there's been a major farm accident in Donegal this week already, involving a quad. So look, it's a startling statistics, and it's sort of something that we need to address. And look, I think Alma told me something there last week when she was speaking to me. I think it must have been a farm safety competition, and a young daughter bought her father a PTO guard for his birthday present. Now, you imagine the impact that had on that farmer, the young daughter giving her father a PTO guard. Like, if we start with the young generation, you say you can't make old dogs learn new tricks, but if you start with a young generation and get them into the habit of farming safely, you can change things. Okay, Alma. Look, this particular slide just it bears out the what's happening, and I'd like to thank the HSA for providing these first few slides, because they're all to do with statistics. And you can see here the top graph here, a grayed out one, the 65 age category. Like, since 2016, unfortunately, there's a rise in the number of fatalities in this age cohort. And you can see they're broken down into children, adults from 19 to 64, and then the 65 plus. So unfortunately, since 2016, we're seeing more fatalities among the older age group. Look, as I sort of said in my opening slide, these farmers are that bit older. Mobility is not what it would have been when they're younger. Their hearing mightn't be as good. And look, some of these accidents can happen very quickly and simply. Look, this is since, and I think Evelyn put up this particular slide as well, but just in the last 10 years, we've had 210 farmers that have lost their lives to various incidents on farms. And 72% of those are basically from tractors and vehicles, livestock and machinery. So that really is where the bulk of the farm accidents are happening, or the fatal accidents is around machinery, livestock, and tractors and quads. And over that period of time, we've lost 95 farmers over the age of 65. So the farmers in that older age bracket is making up 45% of the fatalities over the last 10 years. Which, as I said before, these numbers, it's easy to shout out numbers, but unfortunately, there's a loved one here that's been missed every day in a family setting due to a farm fatality. Unfortunately, I think there's too little more. If you had it again there, Alma. And last year, I know in Donegal, we had 3 fatalities last year in Donegal. One involved a child, and 2 others. One was an elderly farmer on a silage pit, and a further one was falling through a roof. Look, all tragedies, and some can be prevented. And look, we're always going to have accidents, but we need to try and reduce the number of these serious fatalities that are happening on farms. So this is really looking at now the older cohort of farmers, and look, the same trend is there. Compared to the previous slide, it's still livestock, it's still machinery, and it's still tractors and farm vehicles that are causing the fatalities in farmers in the age category over 65. You can see there that 41 farmers lost their lives in relation to tractors, 3 there with machinery, and 25 farmers there in relation to livestock. I know the Donegal County Chairman here, Brendan McLaughlin. He mightn't like me telling you his age, but anyway, he's 3 years ago, he was 67 years of age, and Brendan would have excellent facilities on his farm, I would like to point out. And I've been working with Brendan a long time. And unfortunately, look, a heifer that had calved a number of days reacted unusually, and he knew as soon as he knew he was in trouble, and he was in the pen with her. And luckily, he's fairly he's a fit man for his age. Okay, he didn't totally escape, but he got most of his body out of the pen before she got it. But if you watch the Hitch and Safety Authority have a very small video up there of Brendan. She crushed his leg badly, and he was hospitalized. So it's a very good little video to show. Even just because you have excellent facilities, you still can't be complacent. And look, Evelyn sort of said there, a cow around calving time or a few days after calving time, her hormones are up. You just need to be vigilant and be able to move. And this is probably the area where I would say see older farmers. My own father's 81 years of age, and look, as soon as a cow's calving, he nearly wants to be in there to check the calf and all. And that's, I do my best to try and keep him out of these pens, because look, cows can move quickly and aggressively. And look, it doesn't matter what age you are, you're not going to stop a cross cow attacking you, and you just don't need to be in there. Just let them bond and settle them, and always, if you're going to work at the calf, I think as Evelyn's pointed out, make sure there's something between you and the cow and the calf in terms of a gate. So look, you can see there the trends are there. Tractors, machinery, livestock are the main fatalities. And again, look, falling from a height. Again, look, I shouldn't say it, but if you're of a certain age, there's no reason in the world you should be up cleaning out spoutings. There should be a younger person there. A young person will maybe recover from a fall. When an older farmer breaks an arm or a hip, it's going to take a lot longer time for that to heal. So I'd be telling any farmer that when they come to a certain age, there's certain tasks they certainly shouldn't be doing. Rolling a silage pit will be one of them. Cleaning gutters definitely shouldn't be up there, and they mightn't like hearing this, but you have to tell them. Okay, Alma. And again, this is sort of one is, a lot of the instances around farming in terms of machinery, a lot of them are around crushes. A tractor, the park and brake not being put on the tractor, getting out of the tractor without the handbrake, the tractor being on a light, maybe not totally level, on a slight slope, and the tractor rolls back and crushes the farmer. And again, round quads, look, myself and Evelyn be out in farms and you see farmers in quads. How many farmers are actually wearing helmets? Very, very few. A helmet, 130 euros will buy you a very good helmet. The unfortunate thing about a quad is they're not as stable as people realize, and especially a lot of quads now, farmers have put sprayers on the back of them, which even makes them even more unstable. Again, look, I'm going to talk later about a quad in terms of a safety aspect, but you just need to be aware when working with machinery. Again, older farmers hooking on machinery and just getting crushed when maybe lifting the implement or whatever, being in the wrong place. And again, I would say if an older farmer wants to do something like this, make sure there's someone else maybe helping them maybe to hook on the implement. So if something does go wrong, that there's someone there to prevent it from actually happening. Okay, look, this is a few tips, look, for all farmers and not just the older farmers in all age groups. Last year, before COVID hit out, I had a person around basically something a bit different with groups of farmers that I hadn't done at all. I've got 5 beef discussion groups, and what we did with the farmers was a first aid course. And you'd say, well, what's, and I had a person with me called Aidan Thompson, who's got Donegal Safety Training Solutions. And Aidan had spent a long time as a paramedic. He was one of the people that was on the rescue helicopter, forget the number. So he had a lot of experience of basically being first on the scene to farm accidents. And he generally said, like most farm accidents are generally serious. Whether it doesn't matter what they involve, but he says it's not a typical accident when you're called out in an emergency service. And a few little points that he said, and these are critical. And I would say to every farmer here tonight, whether you're young or old, just think about these for a wee minute. And the first one was a mobile phone. And he said, there's not much point in having a mobile phone if it's lying in front of a Jeep or in a tractor. Like, and if you're doing something on a farm or in a particular field and an accident happens and you've no mobile phone, you can't basically ring anybody, or you can't alert anyone for help. And suppose the other thing that he had as well, you know, most older farmers are maybe not that used to mobile phones, but a lot of them are quite good at mobile phones if they're shown. Maybe put a few numbers on speed dial, so that if they do get into difficulty, they basically all they have to do is hold 1 or 2 or whatever to basically get directly to a number, so they don't have to dial in a whole number. So put a mobile phone, make sure when you leave your farm that your mobile phone is fully charged and you have it on you, not leave it in the Jeep or the tractor or wherever. That's why it's called a mobile phone. So actually have the mobile phone with you. The other thing that he said, and I hadn't heard about this one before, is most farm accidents, speed is of the essence, because a lot of these farm accidents are quite serious, and you know, getting paramedics or the emergency service to you quickly is very, very important. So I remember him asking the groups of farmers that were there that night, how many of the farmers actually knew their air code? Very few. So that was the first thing, that you should know your air code. But the unfortunate thing about the air code, it's generally to where you're living, your dwelling house. Okay. Now, there'll be lots of farmers on here tonight that are probably out farms, you know, and even, you know, if you have a 200-acre farm around your dwelling house and you're working on the far end of that farm, it's a long distance from where your dwelling house is. So an app that he told us about it's called What 3 Words. It's an app. It's What 3 Words, and this particular app basically it basically gives you 3 words for your exact location, 3 meters by 3 meters. So if you ring the emergency service and give them these 3 words, they can locate you. Now you need to be careful with the words, because some of the words are quite similar, but the 3 words will give you the exact location of where you are. So if you're way up, if you're out and out farm, you don't know what the air code is for your dwelling house, there's a very useful app. So you can basically, if you're maybe cutting a tree, a branch falls on you and you can't move, you know, being able to tell the emergency services exactly where you are so that they can get to you quickly. Suppose this is sort of something a lot of farmers don't like doing, is asking for help. And I would sort of say this to the older generation. I would deal with a lot of older farmers, bachelor farmers, and there's certain tasks there. Look, you could have did them easily when you're in your 20s, and with the best will in the world, they still think they can do them. But this is the area that, look, as advisors, vets, etc., you need to ask these people to get help. And I see around like TB testing, you know, a man in his 60s, I shouldn't say it, but he shouldn't really be around a TB testing, because when animals, whatever's about the vets when they arrive on the farm, but animals can act quite differently, because they know Evelyn's going to get her jags out, and you know, animals do act differently when strangers arrive on a farm. So I was sort of saying, if you have an older farmer on the farm, you know, maybe he should take a back seat and get young help in there. Okay, so ask for help. The next little point I want to make out here is in relation to 2 things: a quad and a steel pigtail post. A quad, I would say, for the older generation, if you're going to go and check livestock, whether it's cows, youngster. I was actually on a farm last Friday, a man probably in his early 60s, and a November born calf last year, basically was making for him, and he had to make a quick exit out of the field, and as he says himself, I had no stick, no nothing in my hand. Okay, so the first thing, look, if you're off that age group, look, I'd be sort of saying, if you have a quad on the farm, bring it in through the livestock. Okay, you know, because you're not as quick as you used to be, and at least if you're in the quad, or better again, a tractor or whatever the case may be, drive through the livestock. Okay, I know of another serious farm accident happened about 2 weeks ago in relation to livestock as well. A very experienced livestock person, and again suffered serious injuries. And again, if I was walking through the field, if you weren't bringing the quad, I would be bringing, you all know what the pigtail posts are for electric fences, and I'd be using the steel ones, the ones with the ring on the top. Why am I using a steel pigtail post? Well, a timber stick will break. The PVC piping that you'll see in farms, basically they give, you can't push an animal away with them. The steel pigtail post, you have a good grip on the end of it. It is pointy and it is strong. Now, you don't want to be using it, but if needs be, you will be able to put an animal away from you if you are carrying a pigtail post like that. The other area is basically have a proper first aid kit in the farm, and I know under the Board B Quality Assurance Scheme, farmers are supposed to have first aid kits as part of the audit. I've seen a lot of these first aid kits, and I know Aidan Thompson has seen them as well. You know, in reality, the first aid kit might be suitable for an accident that happens within an office space, but most first aid kits are not basically not fit for purpose on a farm, because a lot of farm accidents, you know, big cuts or whatever the case may be, are basically, so go out and buy yourself a proper first aid kit. And you might wonder what the picture is to the right there. Basically last year at the end of the courses, basically Aidan put together basically what he thought a proper first aid kit should actually have in it for a farmer. And basically we put all these kits together and we delivered them out onto farms. So basically you actually had something to use if something unfortunately did happen. If it did actually hopefully you never need it, but if something does actually happen, you actually have something to work with. I suppose the last little thing there is as well is first aid course. These are run in every community at different times of the year during the winter months. And I would say to any farmer, if you've never done a first aid course, might be no harm to go and do a basic first aid course, because you might never know when you actually need it. And you know, you could save someone's life by knowing what to do, because a lot of people, something happens, what do we do? They panic. But if you have a first aid course done, even though it's basic first aid, it's amazing what you do, what you can then. And as I always say, every day is a school day. Okay, so and you're never too old to learn. So okay. So look, Evelyn spoke there about poor facilities on farms. Look, this is 2021. There's no reason in the world why farmers in this day and age shouldn't have proper facilities for holding and restraining animals for calving and etc. The department over the last number of years, the Department of Agriculture, have had several grant schemes. The latest one is TAMS, okay, that is finishing in end of this year. For any young trained farmer, basically he gets a 60% grant, and any farmer over that age, it's a 40% grant. Okay, you apply online. Unfortunately, there's only 2 tranches left. One now in tomorrow, and the last one the 5th of November. And a calving gate costs about €400. That's what a calving gate costs. The picture to the right there, a lot of farmers might be wondering what's that about. Basically, that's another safety precaution, and it's a very, very simple installment. And you can see there, it's a skylight, and you can see, hopefully you can see it, but basically down the ridges of the skylight, there's basically steel rods. Okay, that's again another safety item that can be installed under the TAMS health and safety. So again, if you're up walking on that roof and you actually happen to step on that skylight, you might be a bit sore, but you're not going to fall to the concrete underneath. So again, look, these are simple items that, you know, can basically save someone's life, or, you know, so again, there's grant aid on that type of equipment. And the last little slide here is basically picture there for Evelyn on the right. So basically, proper calving gate. And look, these are all the things that are covered under health and safety. And I'd be sort of saying to any farmer, or even vets out visiting farms, you know, you need to ask farmers, you know, to improve facilities. And I'd have a lot of clients that have excellent facilities now that have availed bull pen, calving pen. Look, again, for handling sheep. These are all items that are grant aided under TAMS, head scoop, leg lifter, etc. So, you know, things like this here make Evelyn's life a lot handier. If you're a head scoop, leg lifter, things like that there, you know, once you have them, you ask yourself, how did you do without them for so long? Okay. And I think we're the last, look, this is a document farmers hate looking at. And the only time they maybe take it out of I shouldn't say out of the dust, is basically when it comes to the Board B Quality Insurance inspection. It's a safety book or risk assessment book. Now, there's only the most important page of that book, and you go out onto a lot of farms and it's blank. Okay, and I'm going to call a spade a spade. This is a document that's never completed. Okay, it's never completed. There's a section on the back of that book. I should have took a picture of the back of the book, or there's a page inside the back of the book called Action List. Okay, so basically what it is, if you see something on your farm that's broken or whatever, you write it into this, into the back of this, and basically when you fix it, you sign it and you date it. And I know I've done a few times this with my discussion groups, and it's a very interesting exercise to do. Now, a lot of farmers don't mightn't like to do it, but there's nothing like having a set of maybe 15 sets of fresh eyes walking around your farm, because they will see hazards that you have never seen, because you're working on the farm, the same farm day in and day out, you actually don't see the hazard. But if you get 15 sets of fresh eyes, if you're a member of a discussion group and they walk around your farm and you break the groups up into maybe 3 or 4 farmers in a group, and you say, right, you go and look at livestock, someone else go and look at machinery, someone else look at buildings, and come back, and what did you see? What did you see on this person's farm to make it safer? And most farmers are very receptive when someone actually points out something. The farmer himself might never see it. So look, rather than that book being dreaded by most farmers, that's a book that farmers should look at and go to the very back of it and look at, and there's an action list there, and to see, is there something that is a hazard on your farm, and can you do something about it? And I think the last 2 slides here, look, this is a family picture, and look, the question I'm asking here, have you ever asked the question, what if something happens to somebody in that chain? We'll all do something different after the event, but hopefully after, Farm Safety Week, farmers will be proactive, change habits, and try and reduce. Let's try and improve. Let's get our figures back down to where the construction industry. Look, there is going to be accidents, but currently within agriculture, farm accidents are too high. And I'll leave you with that final slide. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you for your great presentation, Gary. I know, as I say, you did mention bringing other farmers onto your farm or during discussion groups or whatever. I know IFA have been over the years trying to initiate a peer-to-peer farm safety program, and maybe this is a good opportunity to bring it to the fore again, and just to mention to people that it is something, and if there's anyone listening that is interested in taking part, just to let us know. Also, the other thing, I suppose, for farm safety is to make sure that you keep yourself well and keep yourself hydrated at the moment as well. Is another, you don't want to be suffering from dehydration in this hot weather. So hopefully it will be something that you will bear in mind as well. And as I said, thanks again. And hopefully there'll be a few questions at the end. Now, as I say, mental health is a constant issue and a key part of Farm Safety Week theme. And I am delighted to welcome Trish Duke, a mindset coach who will be sharing her own mental health experiences and looking at the impact of gratitude, isolation, and judging others on our mental health. So thank you, Trish. Whenever you want to start.
Okay, so guys, sorry now, I don't know what's happening in here that I can't come on the laptop. If there's an echo here, I'll turn off the laptop. Is there kind of an echo happening?
A little bit, but it's not too bad.
Because I could turn off the laptop and just do the phone if that sounded much better. Oh gosh, I'm going anyway. So that's us now, just on the phone.
That's fine. We can hear you perfectly, and that's the main thing. Thanks, Trish.
Right, okay. Well, listen, I just want to thank Mabel and Turlock, from the AFA for inviting me to speak here tonight. And I'm here, yes, to talk about my experience of depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts, and, how I've handled that and what I do to keep myself well. Now, straight away, I just want to say, anybody that's listening to this that is feeling under pressure, they're feeling stressed, they're feeling anxious, they're depressed, please go and get help. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. Get to your doctor. Go to a professional. Go to a friend, maybe a family member if you feel more comfortable. Get them to go with you. But do not let yourself get so far down the road that you're so ill that you end up maybe having suicidal thoughts or something really dreadful like that. Get in early. And I say this because my experience over the years was, you know, that I let myself go too far down the road. I got too unwell. And when I go to my doctor, I say, Trish, why were you not here before now? You've such a harder journey to get back to a good spot the further down you go. So please, first off, go and get help, right? Now, a little bit about myself, and I hope now, am I being heard? Can somebody tell me, am I being heard? Hello?
Yes, loud and
Yes.
Right. Okay, thank you. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I was brought up on a farm. We had a mixed farm at the time. Now my brother runs a farm, and it's solely dairy farm. But I can't say I'm a farmer, because when I was growing up, there was 9 of us and 4 girls and 5 boys. And the girls helped mum with the cooking and the cleaning, and the boys worked on the farm. And what we used to do, could be 20 for dinner days, and we were helping mum maybe bring the tea and the sandwiches down to the fields during the hay and the silage. I did help deliver an odd calf. That's about as much as I can say as my farming experience. But just to let you know that I do know a little bit about the farmer background, and I do know how some things work. And one of the things I want to touch on really too here is isolation. Because when I think back to my childhood, and there's other people here younger than I will remember the time, and there's people older will definitely remember when I was younger, and it came to the time for the hay or came time for silage, there was a community of people there to help. There was relations, there was uncles, there was cousins, there was neighbouring farmers. And for 4 or 5 days, they were all there together, bringing in the hay, doing the silage, having the crack, having the banter. They'd come in for dinner, there'd be good crack around the table. And all of that was good fun. Skip forward now so many years, and as contractors are coming in. Farmers now, the machinery is so expensive, or they're choosing to spend their money in whatever way they want, or whatever it is. But the contractors are coming in, they're in and out maybe in 5 or 6 hours. They bring their own sandwiches now, you don't even have to feed them. And that is a big loss to people that were used to having, the camaraderie around the table and people helping at those times. But what I would say to you, anybody there that really is feeling isolated and feeling really lonely, gosh, reach out. And, you're hearing people here saying, reach out. And don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed to do that. Like my brother would say to me that, when you're on a farm, it can be a lonely place. So he would have joined the football, took part in football. He would have gone cycling. He meets my sister one day a week, he goes for a walk with her. It gets a chat, he's out, he's having different conversations. Think of ways that you can start to mix, start to communicate with other people. And you might think it's a wee bit hard, but listen here, you're not happy where you are. It's not helping your well-being. You'll be so much better if you just make the first step, the first move. Make a phone call even to somebody and just say, do you know what? I feel very lonely. Can we start to meet up? Just do something that you can start off by introducing more company, different conversation. And yes, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And there's something that I do think as well as, some people think, well, I don't have the time. I haven't time to take time off to go for a walk or to go cycling or to go to the football. Well, I'm going to tell you, you do have time. Because if something happened on the farm, and we've heard Gary and them talk about things that happen, you are not going to be able to work. You are not going to be there. You could be in hospital laid up for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. Somebody else will come in and somebody else will work the farm while you're there. Why wait for that to happen before you take a break, before you start looking after yourself? So please don't say you don't have the time, because you can. And another thing that people are afraid of is what's somebody going to think or what's going to say. What's the neighbour going to think? What are they going to say? I'm out now and I'm going for a walk, or I'm meeting somebody for coffee, or I've started football. Because some people think they have to be working all the time. And they're afraid of what other people are going to say, how they're going to judge them. Don't worry about anybody judging you. You're the only person who's going to pay your bills, and you're the only person that can look after your health. And you have to do that and do what it takes. And do you know something? You could be encouraging another fellow farmer to do something when you do that. Like another farmer could look at you and say, oh gosh, Jimmy down the road now, he's starting going out for a walk once or twice a week, or he's meeting up with a pal once or twice a week. Do you know what? I think I'll do the same. And before you know it, you could have a lovely wee camaraderie of you doing something together, having a nice chat, having a nice chin wag, and just getting out of that feeling of loneliness and isolation. Now, to let you know about myself, right? My depression and my anxiety, all that started for me when I was in my early 20s. And at the start, I didn't know what was wrong. I was crying. I didn't know why I was crying. I wasn't sleeping, and I didn't know why I wasn't sleeping. And eventually, I was diagnosed with depression. And I was advised to see a psychiatrist, which I thought, oh my God, I can't let anybody know this. I was totally embarrassed, totally ashamed. You know, there was a stigma attached to mental health back then. There is still, but not as much. And I'm really happy for that. And that's one of the reasons that I'm passionate about talking about mental health, because for years I didn't talk about it myself. And then I realized, you know what, Trish, you're just helping stigmatize it yourself by not being open about it. Now I'm comfortable. I really don't care. You see, at times we're afraid to talk about our mental health because we think we're going to be judged. What's people going to say about us? It doesn't matter. People need to hear you talking about mental health. It'll help so many other people open up. It will reduce the stigma around mental health by opening up around it and talking about it. So once you get comfortable, feel free, talk to your friends. And that's what I started to do. I just started to say, okay, Trish, do you know what? Let's talk about it. Let's get the word out there. And by doing that, you're helping other people. Other people are so glad to hear somebody else talking about something that they can relate to. Because sometimes you think it's not relatable, but it's very relatable because most people are struggling in some way or have struggled or have some experience of mental health. Now, you know, just to let you know as well that when my depression was really bad, I was married. I had 2 little kids. One was 2, one was just born. Lauren, and she was born on my father's birthday, and I was very excited about that because we were extremely close. We were just like best buddies. And 8 weeks afterwards, Daddy passed away. And that just, you know, I was I suffered from depression as it was. And when that happened, I just had rock bottom. And I was at the point where I had 2 little babies. I wasn't fit to function. I was up at night crying, not able to do anything. And eventually I was planning what I was going to do, and I was planning my suicide. And at the time, it was the only way out that I could see, you know, and this is what I want to let people know. You know, I did a mental health first aid course there not so long ago, and something was said that has stuck with me since. And it really made sense to me that people don't commit suicide because they want to die. They commit suicide because they struggle to live. And that is really true. I'd never heard it said like that before, but it really made sense to me then. The mental pain, the mental anguish, some of you may already know and be experiencing it, that it really is horrendous. And you just feel a burden as well. Like that's the way I felt. I felt an absolute burden on my family. And I just thought, you know, I planned what I was going to do. Thankfully, I didn't follow through on it. My doctor was very supportive. My husband was absolutely amazing. Honestly, he's been my rock. We're married 31 years yesterday, and I've been blessed to have him in my life. But thankfully, you know, I got the right help. I ended up going into St. Pat's up in Dublin, Psychiatric Hospital. And I spent a lot of time when I came out up and down to Dublin, for years, up and down. My husband drove me up and down. But eventually my form did lift, and I got in good form again. And then a number of years ago, it slipped again. I ended up in St. Pat's for 10 weeks. And look, do you know what? I've learned a lot from being in St. Pat's, and I've learned a lot of life lessons that I've taken with me. And was it a nice place to be? No, it wasn't. But you know what? You have to do what you have to do. So anybody listening here, you know something. If it's a thing you're that ill and you have to go into hospital, don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. Go on. The help in there is going to be really, really good. It'll be fantastic for you, and it's what you need. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Other people go into hospital if they've other ailments. The mind is no different. The mind gets sick just the same as anything else. You know, there's nothing special about the mind. That'll get sick too. But just to jump now to things that I do kind of on a daily basis and that really help me, and I really practice this daily, and I absolutely love gratitude. You know, there's a lot of research done on gratitude, and gratitude really does help lift your mood. What you focus on grows. And if you start to focus on what's going right in your life, what's going well, you will see a lot more to be grateful for. And when you're focusing on what you're grateful for, you know what? You become a happier person because you see life feels more positive. Now, the opposite is true as well. What you focus on grows. If you're going to focus on the negative and what's going wrong and what isn't right, well, guess what? That's all you're going to see. Is that going to help your farm? Absolutely not. You're going to feel like crap, and you don't want that. And if I can explain it to you like this, if you were shopping for a car, so just say, you wanted to buy, say, a Golf, right? Did you ever notice when you're out driving, all you see is Golfs? Because that's what you're focusing on. And this is the same. Focus on what's going well in your life, what's going good in your life. You will begin to see more and more that's you're so grateful for. And some of you might say, well, Trish, you know what? I haven't a lot to be grateful for right now. Well, I'm going to tell you, you do. Have you ever seen those little kids on the telly that maybe only 6, 7, 8 years of age carrying big drums of water on their shoulders and this real sweltering heat? And they walk for miles, maybe twice a day, to bring water home to a large family in a little hut that don't even have a floor. They're just on ground. They have no furniture. They have very little food. Remember, you get up in the morning and you put on the tap and your water's there. You put on the kettle's boiled for you, and you open the fridge and the food's there. Start off with that. If you're finding it hard to find something to be grateful for, start off with that. You have a roof over your head. You've got food. You've got running water. Start that. And gradually then get into it. Every night and every morning, just start off your day and say, this is going to be a good day today. And what am I grateful for? And at the end of the evening, guys, also say how well you done today. Whatever you done, say you done well. And if the neighbour done more, that doesn't matter. Because I'm going to tell you now, that's another thing. Stop comparing yourself with other people. Comparison is the thief of joy. It takes away your joy. What does comparison do? It makes you feel inadequate, and it can deflate you. More often than not, that's what it does to us. So stop comparing yourself with the neighbour or whatever they're doing. We're all starting at a different point. You could be dealing with a mental health issue. They may not, so they're able to get on with something. But what you done that day, say the fact that maybe you got out of bed and you just did a few wee chores, and that was maybe a hard day's work for you. Well done, you did that. And I would encourage you, to get out of bed during the day. And most of you farmers, I know you have to get up and you have to get out. You find there's nobody else there to help you. But recognise what you've done that day, even if you think it's very little. Recognise it and say, well done to you. And I want you to start treating yourself like your own best friend as well. Because, if you had a friend that wasn't well, you'd probably, ask, how can I help you? And you'd try and help them out some way. Well, you have to take care of yourself too. And if that means taking time out, if that means going to the doctor, whatever it means, you have to start doing that as well. Start encouraging yourself. Start being kind to yourself. Praise yourself. Support yourself. Treat yourself like your own best friend. Because you know yourself, if your best friend came and said, do you know what, I'm thinking of doing a course, but I don't know if I'd be able to do that. You'd say, of course you can. Go for that. That'll be brilliant. Whereas on the other hand, you might be thinking, oh God, I'll never be able to do that. But turn around and say, no, you can. Encourage yourself. Give yourself a clap in the back. And also, guys, become mindful of the conversations that you're having with yourself and with other people. Are they mainly negative or are they mainly positive? You often find if you meet somebody, right, and you have a lovely conversation and you leave and you just feel so much better for being around them. They just lifted you. And then you could meet somebody else and dear God, you come away and you're absolutely drained and you feel absolutely wrecked because they just drained the energy and the life out of you because it was so doom and gloom. But because we even do this to ourselves when we're having conversations with ourselves and we give out about ourselves and we talk negatively to ourselves, what we can't do and we're no good and we're this and we're that and the other. That is not going to help you. Watch the conversations you're having with other people. And if you're generally in a conversation with somebody, right, that is normally negative, start turning that conversation around. So when they're going down the negative route, don't be starting, because a lot of times we fall into the path of agreeing with them and saying, God, yeah, you're right, and do you know what? No, stop that now. Start thinking, right, I'm changing this conversation around to something more happy, more uplifting. We'll feel much better after this conversation. And start doing that. Maybe spend a wee bit less time with people that are draining your energy. Don't leave them completely. I wouldn't say that, but maybe cut the conversations a wee bit short because if it's not doing you, serving you, and you're not feeling good, I don't expect you, to stay in that conversation all the time, because that's not going to help your mental health either. And another wee thing I want you to do is look at the beliefs that you have about yourself and the beliefs that are limiting you. It could be a thing like Gary talked there earlier on about how important a first aid course was. Now, maybe somebody in this call is saying, I could never do that. I was never any good at school anyway. And the teacher told me once that I was stupid and I couldn't learn. And so I know I would not be able to do that course. Now, that could be a belief that you have carried from your little child, but it's not true. And if I could tell you the story about elephants, when elephants are captured, right, wee baby elephants, when they're captured, right, there's a rope tied to its wee leg and it's tied to a stake. And there's a little radius that wee baby elephant can walk around in circles. Now, at the start, when the wee baby elephant is tied to that stake, it will pull its leg and pull the leg, and it can't get free. It's just not able to. So after time, it believes it can't. So it turns out being a big, strong elephant, and all that elephant has to do now, it's still tied to the same stake. And all it has to do really is lift his leg and give a wee tug, and he's gone, he's free. But he's conditioned now to believe that he can't, but it's not true. And the same is with you. What are you believing about you that is not true, that's holding you back from moving forward, from having a life that you want, from doing things that you want? Maybe it's even a belief about, well, you were brought up that, you worked on a farm every day of the week and you worked from morning to night and that was it. And, maybe you were brought up with that mindset. But that was your parents' mindset that was passed on to you, and maybe it was passed on to them. And if you still have that mindset, maybe it's time for you to change that and pass on a new mindset to the next generation, that it is okay to look after yourself. And to do that, you do need to take time out. You do need a break. You do need to meet with people. You do need different kinds of conversations. Step outside your comfort zone and start changing the beliefs that you have. Look at them and ask, is that really true? And I can tell you that most of the time, they're not true. It's not true. So my conversation now, I'm going to end up with just giving you a little sort of something I wrote out earlier on that might give you a wee kind of synopsis of everything that I'm trying to talk to you now in relation to you taking care of yourself and looking after yourself. When you take care of yourself, when you show yourself compassion and love, when you allow you to be you and live the life you want to live, that harsh, negative, critical, fearful mind gets weaker. Every act of self-love and self-care is a strong message that you are sending to you that you are worthy, you are deserving, you are healthy, and you've got this. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed talking to you, so be it that it's through the phone. I can't see any faces or any interaction that way. But really what I wish for you all is, please, awareness, raise awareness on mental health. This is what this forum's doing tonight, which is absolutely brilliant, and this is what I love about it. It's raising the awareness. Don't be afraid to speak about it. Go for help and take care of yourself. Thank you all.
That's lovely, Trish. Thank you very much for a lovely presentation. An awful lot of very touching, moving and positive initiatives, I suppose, in the statement or in your presentation. Thank you very much. Now, I suppose maybe Alma will take over the questions and answers session. If there's anybody has any questions for any of our speakers this evening, maybe you can raise your hand. I don't know, has Alma any comments so far or anything in the chat box? I didn't notice anything.
The chat room. So if you want to put your hand up at any stage, and I do actually have a question or two. First of all, Evelyn, fantastic visuals. used throughout the presentations. And for me, it's when I'm out educating children, especially, it's really great to actually have the visuals around the zoonoses, the different diseases, especially because I think it is very much a forgotten aspect, around farm safety. And I do often question, how many hand washing facilities have you seen around farms? And the second question then would be around kind of bull safety. What are the things that you've seen with regards to bulls on farms, and with regards to their handling, putting in rings or not putting in rings, as the case might be?
I suppose the hand washing, maybe since COVID, was taken over, like we would see a lot more like sanitization stations, as they call it. And I suppose in and around dairy farms there would be a lot of hand washing facilities. And in fairness, a lot of sheep farmers or two around lambing time would have, sinks there to wash your hands. So I have seen quite a bit. You would and you would get soap and everything. So it's not too bad. Bulls, I would have went out to ring a few bulls. But I know some farmers do it themselves, or maybe get a neighbour to do it. I suppose, just like the crushes. I had one farmer ask me to inject a bull in a pen, but obviously, like, you refuse. But usually, like, they would stand back, or they, would give the bull space, or put them in the crush, or so yeah, I haven't seen, I suppose, too many bad things about like bull handling. But
and would farmers be okay with ringing their own bulls? I mean, I remember growing up, my granddad had a dairy farm in Tala in Dublin, when you could have a farm in Tala in Dublin, and he always had said farmers should never ring their own bull's nose. They kind of associate you then, with negative things, and you're kind of, on their hit list, maybe for attack, etc. I mean, is that something that that you have seen, or that you've been aware of?
Yeah, I suppose, like, farmers, like, and I do think they get a lot of, like, neighbours to ring their bulls, or us, I suppose, because they are associated, like, with pain, and I suppose they see you then, and I suppose my red hair too would be a big flag, so they might want to see me again. But yeah, I don't think farmers usually ring their own bulls anyway, as far as I'm aware. So yeah.
We have a hand up there from Anna Kyo. If you can unmute yourself there, Anna, you can ask your question. You're on mute there, Anna.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. A very, very wordy and interesting evening, and thank you very much to all the contributors, including yourself. It was really excellent. But there's one thing that hasn't been touched upon, and the biggest danger in farming, I consider to be, is the time constraints on work, and how we need to do certain work within a time frame that's been allocated to us by the department, and it's also an EU issue, I know. But I mean, I've seen men working to 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning trying to spread slurry because they couldn't do it because the land wasn't suitable through weather. And and you know what I'm talking about, all the different constraints that can naturally occur. I just feel that, older farmers will work into the night, but a lot of the younger ones will say, well, that's not for me now, hang on. Why should we have to work into the night? Why can't we do it tomorrow? Now, I'm not being facetious by saying that, but I do feel that we have been put under enormous pressure due to time constraints on certain farming practices. And I do know, because I'm 45 years in IFA, I do know that the fatality incidents have increased in a lot of cases because of that. I don't know who will answer that, but it's just something I'm saying. No, and I also state that, there's a really lovely program going on through IFA this week regarding farm safety. And the mottos that are being used would be a wonderful idea for a farm safety calendar for next year. And well done to all of you. Thank you.
Anna, thank you so much for that. And yeah, I mean, I have to agree. It does seem to be such narrow windows, and when we're up against weather and rules and regulations, it does seem to be an uphill battle in so many ways. And I know, again, tiredness, fatigue was definitely one of the themes for this Farm Safety Week. And I don't know if any of our guests would have another comment there. Gary, I'm looking at you, I hate to tell you. If there's anything else to kind of add to that. I mean, is there something that we
no,
do?
look, it's look, working through the night, it's not a safe practice. Definitely not. Look, I think Trish talked about there. Look, mental health, being overtired, that's when accidents happen. Look, I'm not going to mention no names, but a young client rang me there recently, and I says, I'm just finished all night. And a neighbour, he finished his own silage about 9:30 at night, and his neighbour kept torturing him, and they worked right through the night. And I just told the farmer, look, you're an idiot. Because if something happened to any one of you, like, you know, your man's silage can wait. Like, now I know, I'm not sure the last speaker there about time constraints. Look, I know there's a few deadlines around slurry spreading and that there around look, cattle slurries by mid-October. Look, there's different categories throughout the country depending on what storage area you're in. But look, I was sort of saying, look, some of these jobs, time constraints, look, that's where I'm sort of saying ask for help. You know, you can't, and look, farming's never done. You know, there's always work to be done on a farm. And I think Trish sort of said it there a wee bit back about, you know, farmers need to take time out as well. You know, you can work, look, farm work is never done. And I'm from a farming background, and look, I can go out now and I could list off 10 jobs I need doing, but you're not going to do them all. So you just don't get everything done every day. And I know around time constraints, especially around slurry spread, and I know I'm living up here in Donegal, and we're trying to get more farmers to get the slurry spread in the springtime and during the summer months. And don't be waiting until October time to empty your slurry tank. There's no point, because generally in this part of the world anyway, as Evelyn can vouch, you know, come mid-October, ground conditions are not going to be better in October than they are in June and July. So, but look, again, if you're finding time pressure, look, ask for help. Take in employment if you need to do certain tasks at certain times of the year, and don't be putting all the pressure on yourself to get work done. You know, tomorrow's another day, and definitely I've seen it, and that's sort of something I've seen by working in different countries. Hey, they're a lot better at getting people to do different jobs, weekends off. I know Evelyn works in a fairly busy veterinary practice, and there's one thing. You know, vets, you know, it's very hard to get large animal vets. And one of the big drawbacks in veterinary practice is, no, vets don't want to work 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They need time off, they need weekends off, they need a social life outside of veterinary practice. And it doesn't matter what profession you're in, people need time out. And, you know, it's just, look, it's good for your mind and getting away from the place and having a bit of respite. But yeah, look, I do know what that lady's talking about, time constraints and pressures of farming. But look, you can relieve some of this pressure, you know, yourself. You know, you can't put yourself under a lot of pressure that you don't really need to be under.
And I suppose
you're not related to the fact that they've now increased their constraints that you cannot even get rid of polluted water, dairy water, and spread it on stubbles during the close down period. I mean, that is just so ridiculous. That's an extra thorn in the crown on people who are trying to do the thing and do it right and keep the cattle nice and dry and slats and keep their units free from all sorts of overspill. You know, I really understand your attitude, but the attitude of the department regarding something like this is absolutely frightful. I am 43 years married to a farmer who is 72 years old and works so proudly on his farm and loves everything he does. But that man is just, you know, somebody has just turned the thumbscrews again on this situation where he cannot spread water on his stubbles to release storage in a very wet time in the close period. It doesn't make sense. It's not the bull, it's not the heifer, it's not the freshly calved cow, it's not any of those things that are causing accidents in farming. It's the time constraints and the threat of an inspection. We had a dairy inspection today, and we were told that we can no longer use a corrugated roof on our milking parlour, which is 55 years old and milking 45 cows for a long time, and nobody ever said, or B or anyone else ever said there was anything wrong with that. And all of a sudden, this debutante comes in and says, no, you can't do that anymore. And there's 2 cobwebs also visible. And why are there flies in the milking parlour? Because there's no cobwebs to kill them. It's all that silly billy stuff that we have to put up with, that we're absolutely sick
I think we all definitely have kind of examples of the lack of joined up thinking, and this is a whole issue with farming. It's a very subjective industry, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everybody else. There isn't a one size fits all situation, and unfortunately, and I mean, it'd be fantastic if we could resolve this issue tonight, because I know we'd be solving a lot of cases for a lot of people. So thank you so much for that. And I know that probably resonated with everybody else. I think the comment that's going to stick with me is comparison is the thief of a joy. And I'd like to thank Trish for that particular comment. I think I might have that sewn somewhere so I can keep it up there. But our time is getting away from us. And I would like to thank all of our speakers for coming on today. I'd like to say how great it was to be able to do this regardless of COVID, and a big thanks to Turlock for engaging with you all and helping us put this event together. So Caroline, I will hand back over to you to maybe close out the event. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Alma, for your contribution to it, as well as Turlock and all the other people who helped promote the event for us. Our 3 speakers were wonderful. We have recorded the event, as we have recorded our event on Tuesday, the last Tuesday, which was also very interesting. A different set of speakers, different issues, but all very well put together as well. So, as I say, thank you for taking your time this evening to join us in this event, and hopefully we will all rethink safety, have a safe farming career ahead of us, and continue to rethink safety. And thank you all again for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night, Dan.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.